This morning, I stand in front of you with a very heavy heart, very heavy, to see what has taken place with the First Nations University. And I know that you're entitled to an education just like the rest of the Canadian students. And I'm going to come out with words that's going to offend the governments. They're going to be offended with some of the comments that I'm going to make with regard to education. And I told you before that my great-grandfather was one of the signatories to Treaty 4 in 1874. He was one of the Soda chiefs that asked for education, and they promised him. That was one of the promises that were made. There was a lot of other promises that were never kept. And for that very reason, I continued to support the First Nations University. But what I'm concerned about, what I worry about now, my observation with the federal government and the provincial government, is that in Germany in the early 30s, the Nazis shut all the schools on the Jews. And that's how I perceive these two governments. They're shutting down our university, and then where do we go from here? Concentration camps or what? We're used to. The other thing that I'd like to also state is that the English and the Canadian government were the first ones to initiate a concentration camp. The little reserves that we were herded onto, they were no better than the concentration camps that we hear about during the Second World War. I was brought up on one of those reserves, a small reserve with nothing to eat. It got so bad that we had to eat gophers. Imagine giving up all the lands and the resources from this country, and our Indian people are eating gophers on the reserves. I find that very, very offensive. I've gone through the mill. Canada has never really respected the treaties. Canada has never lived up to its promises. And now today we see them wanting to shut the First Nations University. They should be ashamed of themselves. While they herded us onto those little reservations, they were busy taking all the lands and the natural resources and making themselves rich while we were living in poverty. So imagine that. What do you think of that? Our forefathers suffered and their young children suffered, and there was no end to it. We had to get a permit to leave those reserves to go and look for employment or whatever, to go and visit our relatives on other reserves. That's the image of a concentration camp, where you can't move, you can't do nothing. We couldn't hunt on a reserve because there was no game. The game had depleted, and they made rules and regulations to curb hunting. They said that we were supposed to have kept our hunting rights. They never kept that promise. Today we have regulations that forbid us to go and hunt for our own families. So I ask the federal government to give us some leeway